Don't fuck up. Don't fuck yourselves. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rude Cooking School podcast. I'm your host, John Hauser III. And with me this week, I have a guest. He's a chef, a food historian, an author. He is a former guest and a super cool guy. Likes to rock climb and talk to you on his Instagram account. Last time we had him on, he was here about his book, A History of the World in 10 Dinners. His name is Jay Reifel. Hey, Jay, what's up, man?
Hey, so pleasant to be here.
So like I talked about just now, we were talking, kind of like for the last couple of weeks, like trying to get you on, and you're like, hey, have you checked out my IG account? And honestly, I haven't been on IG in a while, just for sanity reasons and stuff. And so I went to it and checked it out. And the first thing I see is you just talking to the camera upside down. What's that about?
So, rock climbing is actually a pretty big part of my life and my social life. And I know also I'm known as the historical cooking guy, and that's a lot of where my earlier cachet comes from. But so many of my friends are younger, smarter people who are kind of starting their cooking journey. And at the gym, people were constantly asking me cooking questions and recipe questions. And I had started conceiving this idea for a new cookbook to kind of address specifically kind of that group of people. And because my brand is very much this very sedate, and I give webinars about historical food and et cetera, I wanted to do something absolutely ridiculous to kind of pivot the way people thought about me. So if you haven't seen, people in the audience who haven't seen this, it's quite literally me climbing, usually upside down, and giving basic, simple cooking tips, what you can do in 60 to 90 seconds, because the climbs aren't that long, and I'm, not infinitely strong. So, and they've actually become quite popular, and, people send me questions and I try to answer them to the best of my abilities.
I will say you have great vocal control, great breathing technique, because you're upside down and you're moving and you're keeping you don't sound okay, so for the, you know what I mean?
I do sometimes. Honestly, I have something I'm getting really tired on that book.
But for the most part, it's that's pretty fucking impressive that you're just going through just something that somebody brought up. And I agree with you. I get that kind of thing all the time too, especially now for younger people, because I don't, when we were coming up, there wasn't a lot of, the Food Network was not really a thing.
Right.
It was kind of Great Chefs of the World on PBS.
Right. Yep. Watch the hell out of that show.
Or Galloping Gourmet, or Julia Child, or,
the original Iron Chef.
Yeah. The original Iron Chef, which you could only catch at midnight. Which was, I've been watching old Iron Chefs there.
I have been watching old, because it's all on YouTube. I have been watching old original Iron Chef for years. I sometimes think I have watched that show more than anyone on the planet. Full disclosure, I have horrible insomnia. And one of the things that I do at 3:00 in the morning when I can't sleep is I watch episodes of old Iron Chef, and it's fantastic.
I've been watching them like crazy on YouTube. And what's funny is, I remember catching it for the first time and being like, holy shit, they took anime and mixed it with cooking competitions. Because in the beginning, I always thought of the guy who, quote unquote, owned the chairman who, as an evil guy who forces these poor chefs to fight people that they bring from the outside, and then he's eating the pepper in the beginning. And I'm so fascinated. And still today, there's such a really good, it's such a really good class and technique for a lot of stuff. And the plating is hilarious because it's just 90s plating, and it's so fussy, and there's so much, they work so hard on certain just garnishes that aren't even a thing today. It's really a great time capsule, but a lot of the cooking techniques and the way that the food comes out is still
I mean, those
relevant.
guys are really, really tight, and it's sophisticated. And I mean, I'm also like absolutely fascinated with like Chinese cooking techniques. Less so, believe it or not, about the Japanese cooking techniques, but a lot of the Chinese stuff is like I just really love. I love wok cooking. I think it's such a fascinating and specific skill set, and the level of talent most like really proficient Chinese wok chefs have is like mind blowing how tight they are.
Yeah, and also they probably their hands have to be like
man, it's great. Yeah,
their skin has to be like a quarter.
I mean, the thing you always notice with the Chinese stuff is like also like he only has 3 minutes, and he's like no problem, and then he because if you've done the prep, and you have a professional wok, and I recently did a video on this, you can really rock and roll in a way you can't on like a Western stove. Like you can put a dish together really fast.
Yeah, so I have a couple woks. I have a couple good carbon steel woks, and then I have a giant camping wok that I got when my son was a baby, and then of course had to take pictures of him inside the wok. Like, I mean, he's 15 now, and he could probably still get in that thing and go down a hill on a snowy day. It's so big, and that was fun to just take out and put on like like those outside burners for like
know exactly what you mean.
Turkey fryers. Yeah, so it's got a flat bottom because it's a camping thing, but it's huge and it's steel. And man, heating that son of a bitch up and throwing a bunch of food in there was so much fun. But because it's so big, you really have to like, shovel it, right? It's like scooping and but also. That was awesome, but when I do it in the house, it's not the same. You really got to get that thing. Yeah,
I'm spoiled in that, like, I actually have a full commercial wok station at work, so it's like, and I often try. Like, a lot of my friends will actually like ask me if they can come to the kitchen and like try to use an actual wok station. And I'm like, sure, come on down. Let me show you how to do this, because it's like people buy a wok and they go home to their New York apartment with their 3-inch little burner, and they're like, why can't I really stir fry? I'm like, well, because you can't, but
you gotta have ventilation like a motherfucker too. You know what I mean? So with a regular wok station, is it controlled by foot? I don't think I've ever seen.
No, there's a little handle. There's like a little handle that's right kind of at your waist level that rotates, but it's long, and you'll notice a lot of good people will operate it with their hip. Yeah, when you see it suddenly just rocks and rolls,
that's what I'm seeing.
They've given it a little hip check.
That's what I'm seeing.
And just kicked it. I still do it with my hand most of the time, but once again, I'm a bit out of practice. Like I don't. I'm an executive chef. I don't actually even like fully cook all that much at work. I'm also, this is kind of weird, I'm a chef and a pastry chef. So the majority of stuff that I actually do in my day-to-day job is more like the pastry stuff, because I don't have anybody else who can do that really. And then, it's much more like executive stuff and logistics and checking recipes and stuff like that. So,
yeah. And that's a thing I think a lot of people don't realize, is that executive chefs don't really cook a lot. They're expediting most of the time, or they're managing the kitchen.
Yeah, and we're a catering company primarily, so we don't do this straight up. Like, I'm not there at the pass going like fire this and fire that, because that's not really that's not what our business model is. But it's like it's a fantastic day job that I'm very, very happy with.
What do you like better? Do you like pastry or like
savory?
Quote unquote cooking.
I think the truth is, at the end of the day, I actually prefer savory cooking. Like, I went into pastry because this is all a second career for me.
Really?
I worked in the film industry for many years. I was basically a hack screenwriter, or like a lot of screenwriters were coming up are kind of you're working on stuff that you're not super thrilled about. Yeah, well,
everybody's a hack until somebody buys
stuff. And the thing is, but if you actually look at my filmography, the stuff got made is like Sci-Fi Channel at 2:30 in the morning kind of stuff. And no, I didn't get to do any of the versus films. I wanted to do like space octopus versus giant something, but I never got to do those. I did a lot of just low budget, whatever.
I just watched
exactly.
old school King Kong.
The truth is, like, I wrote good things and I sold good things.
Love that movie.
Which is kind of soul destroying at a certain point, which is why I started cooking, because I've always
when nothing's getting made,
the reason that I went into pastry originally was that I come from a very like hard science family background, and I was just more comfortable with that. And that's kind of why I ended up for a while in like so-called molecular gastronomy, because like that's often the application of like pastry techniques to savory food. But at the end of the day, I mean, the stuff that I'm really fascinated by is like understanding recipes and being creative and understanding like the logic that underlies cooking. And that's the thing that I'm so often trying to teach people is like, it's not like first you learn to follow a recipe, right? And then you learn what a recipe is and what it does. And a lot of it is like, there's an essential logic to it that once you grasp that, you know, it just opens up a whole world to you, whether that's salad or like, like for me, it's braising. I love to braise things. And it's like one thing that once you understand how to the logic, right? You can go to your friend's house and look in their cabinet and make something really good pretty easily.
Yeah, once you get used to a recipe, like once you get used to cooking in general, recipes become guidelines or starting points that, you know, like my wife needs a recipe and she's a great cook, but she doesn't feel comfortable. And I always just go, well, just do it. And she's like, I need the thing. And I'm like, just, you know, she gets like, if I'm making the dinner and I'll say, okay, well, here's the recipes that I'm using. And she's like, I just need one. Right. I'm like, no, I combine like 3 or 4 recipes to make one recipe. Here's the shopping list, but you know, here are the recipes if you just need to check to make sure that we're missing anything or whatever. You know? Where she's like, that sounds like a fucking crazy person. But that's like, oh, I'm sure you do this. You see a recipe, you're like, oh, that's an interesting take. And then you see another.
Absolutely.
Like,
I do that all the time. And in the recipes that I've been trying to create like lately, and I'm in this wonderful situation where lots of people are now actually cooking my recipes and coming back to me. So they say, I did this and this worked and this didn't. And I kind of start seeing, you know, how people perceive them. And I'm creating recipes in a certain order. I'm creating recipes to do 2 things fundamentally. One is to build techniques and to build one recipe on another. And the other is to illustrate basic concepts. Yes. So I think it's incredibly useful to do a recipe and then sit down and have someone explain, this is what you just did and this is why it worked. And if it didn't work, maybe this is why it didn't work. And I think that's something that you know, some cookbooks do and some don't. And I think it's tricky to kind of engineer a little program that works very smoothly. That's not like an epic tome. It's not like, you know, one of these huge encyclopedias, to do it in a nice tight little way that's kind of funny. Because I think, you know, if you want someone to remember something, make it funny and then they'll remember, you know? So.
Right. Yeah. So many people look at cooking as such a serious thing, you know, because I think a lot of it stems from the fact that there are serious things. You have to be careful. You have to respect knives. You have to respect fire, but you can also have fun and it can be a fun thing, you know, like, okay. One of your Instagram things you were talking about, you were joking about how, one of the biggest myths in the kitchen is that you can caramelize onions in like 10 minutes. Right. Well, when I've done cooking classes in the past, I teach people how to caramel. And then I'm like, this is how long it's going to take. And that's okay. We can do other things while we're watching this, but understand you can't do this easily, you know? And, you know, when they get done, they've got a respect for it, but also a realistic worldview of it, because
there's some tips and tricks, and you can cut that time down a fair amount.
You can burn them.
No, you just like, there are physical limits to what you can accomplish in a kitchen. I mean, it's just like, and those are like, that's one of the ways that I always say, like, there's certain ways that you can spot a bad recipe, you know, and like that is one of the like the ones you look for really early on. It's like, does it say caramelize the onions about 10 minutes? Like, that's probably, you know, there's probably a mistake there. Because also, like, there's basically like recipes that people run into are in a couple of like broad categories. You know, there are cookbook recipes which follow a certain, you know, kind of very formal logic and usually overstate a lot of things, and like always, you know, and every publisher has like slightly different rules, and the rules are different in America and Europe, and you know. And then there's so many recipes that people are getting from like websites, some of which are great, lots of which are really quite good, but
a lot of them are really fucking bad.
That's also true. But also they're really long.
Yeah.
Right? Because what that person is selling is not really the recipe. They're selling a lifestyle.
Yeah,
they're like, they have a picture of themselves and their beautiful house and their beautiful family, and they're telling you, like, if you cook my little 4-ingredient, which is never a good idea, like Wednesday night dish, you know, you're gonna have a beautiful family and a nice car and a beautiful house. I don't know what the logic of that is, but that's what they're selling. But yeah, every time I see like this 3-ingredient thing, and my brain just goes, would be better with 5 ingredients. And also, you're probably not counting salt.
It's funny because it's like a running joke with people now that, like, you know, there's a reason that there's a skip to the recipe button now on a lot of websites, because nobody wants to read that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I read a lot of it, you know, just because, you know, depending on if it's a new website, I'm like, okay, how do they write? What's their style? That kind of thing.
Right.
But people don't realize the reason that they're doing it. Well, one is for SEO, right? Search engine optimization.
Right.
But also, they need to claim this recipe as their self, because you can't copyright a recipe, but you can copyright all of your text. And if you include the recipe in that, that's what you're copyrighting.
Yeah.
So if somebody steals it, you can then, you know, they're covering their ass. But also, you know, I get that people just I just want the recipe. That's fine. But this person maybe put a lot of work into the writing of this, you know, and, you know, you got to respect that to a level. But yeah, I get it. Like, okay, just skip. And skip the recipe button's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like those are the kind of recipes you see. And I mean, at the other end of the spectrum, there's like professional recipes, like the stuff that I write for myself or for my crew. And the ones I write for my crew are a little more involved. The ones I write for myself usually are a couple groups of ingredients, because like the logic is implicit. Like if it's a cake recipe, I'm not going to write like cream of butter and sugar together and then add the eggs and emulsify them.
It's standard.
It's just because like that's what you do. Like
it's baked into the cake.
You should know how to do that. Precisely. So I don't know. I think, but like I do think a lot about how you write a recipe, and I will admit, on my first book, I chafed a bit at the kind of conventions that were thing, and I'm really hoping with some of my new stuff, and I actually put a bunch of sidebars and notes to say, you know, like every time I say thyme, that could be in a lot of recipes, like thyme and some other herbs, you know? But I'm not going to say, you know, like you don't want it to get endless and wordy. And like, this is like the most ridiculous ones are like the convention of this was beaten into me, you know, put it into a food processor, fitted with a metal blade, which is the standard blade that you use for everything. So that's the one you should be using. Or I kid you not, the final editor of my last book, every time I would say, strain through a fine mesh strainer, I would get a note.
You're just going to do it right into the
into
sink.
What? As if I didn't say into a bowl. Did I mean strain through a fine mesh strainer onto the countertop so it pours down onto the floor? Clearly, that's not what I meant. But like, it's these conventions that you get locked into.
I really took the time to write the recipes as if I was writing them for my mother, who was not, she's a good cook for certain things, but is intimidated by quote unquote fancy recipes. Right. And I always try to give hints or, and I'm sure this happens to you, especially now that people are, cooking your stuff and giving you feedback. They'll tell you what they liked or didn't like about how you wrote it. And that is huge. It's such good feedback to go, oh shit, I'd never even thought about that. Like in my head, it's just a thing I do. Like I would always write if I wanted someone to chop rosemary really finely, I would tell them to chop it until it looked feathery. And people wouldn't understand it until they sat there for 3 minutes going back and forth and chopping it. And then you get this weird fluffy pile of stuff and you go, oh, I see what you mean. You know what I mean? And then, because otherwise, if you don't chop it that fine, you're going to get really chunky. Even when you think it's fine, rosemary's still woody.
No, it's not a great, like little things like that have an annoying mouthfeel.
And
you start to eat it, it's kind of like gritty and it's not the way.
I'm always amazed at recipes that are really vague, like, some of the ones you were talking about, or are trying to be so Spartan that it's insane. Like I've been watching, the Chef Jamie Oliver has his own channel on cable. And it's just the Jamie Oliver channel. And you can find it wherever, right? But I'm fascinated by, he's got like a one of his shows is literally 5 ingredients. 5 main ingredients. And it doesn't include salt and pepper. Yeah, exactly. But I'm always amazed that's like, oh shit, that was a really well thought out. Like he actually, because he knows how to cook, knows how to make a fond, knows how to fucking deglaze. Like it's technique. And you don't have to have a lot of ingredients, but 3 is too little.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good, I think that's a good point. I think when you're writing recipes, one of the trickiest things, and actually I used to go back and forth. I actually had a really marvelous editor to work with. And we used to have these really long conversations, like how you define or how you describe texture. Like, is it like sour cream? Is it like pea soup? It's like, particularly when you're talking about like how far to reduce something and stuff. It's like, and I think those are the, like the tricks are actually quite hard to impart on the page. And they're the things that like anytime you ask a new cook to reduce, 80 to 90% of the time, they're not going to reduce it enough. Like they kind of need it. And like, I have this whole little speech of like, I'm trying to teach you to be brave and I'm trying to teach you brinksmanship in a weird way. And it's better to go too far and fuck it up sometimes, to take your stuff and like burn it a little bit and then back it up. You can add water or whatever. Because particularly if you're trying to make a pan sauce that involves reduction and you're going to mount it with butter at the end, the trick is you make it too strong. Like you make it to the point, it's like you taste it and go, oh, that's really a little much. Then you put the butter, dilutes it, you're perfect. Right. But that kind of stuff those are the little things that I think is hardest. And again, doing it in a funny way. Yeah. Going, just be brave. Be brave. It's brinksmanship.
Yeah, like you're playing chicken with your pan.
And a lot of time you just have to give them permission to fuck up. Because, it's better to do that when you're cooking for yourself, not when you're cooking for your mom or your friends. But like,
and be brave. To that point, it's okay to fuck up. Because you'll learn from it, but you're not going to fuck it up so bad that it's inedible, Yeah,
again, it's still going to.
People take it seriously. They think, and if they screw it up, it's like, oh, I can't cook. It's like, no, you just learned. Like,
And sometimes you learn stuff because so many great recipes and great like chef tricks are fuck ups. Like so many things involve like, oh, I accidentally burned it, this one time a little bit. And then I was like, oh, it's so good.
You look at a chef like Francis Mallman, his whole thing these days is burning the hell out of everything. Yeah. Which is a fascinating, like.
There's a total place for that, yeah, I mean, and also like different people's palates are different. Like I love burnt flavors. I have a very sour palate, like much more sour than a lot of people do. But just you kind of you balance stuff out.
Like okay, you were talking about molecular gastronomy earlier, and I know you used to work at WD50. Is that what it was called? Yeah. Wally Dufresne's place. Yep. I took my son and my wife came, and his friend and her parents. We went to like a Comic-Con down in Washington, D.C. It's called Adventure Con. I mean, Awesome Con. And we went there and we hung out. But the whole reason that my wife went and his friend's mom went is because we were going to Jaleo afterwards, which is Jose Andres' place. Mm-hmm. And we go there whenever we're in D.C. It's my son's favorite place to eat in D.C. And I realized that molecular gastronomy was not really a thing anymore when I had to describe, because they have the spherical olive thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
absolutely.
So they have the dish that, you get the real olives that are stuffed with anchovy and a pepper. And then you have the spherical olive, which is all that stuff pureed. And then, the chemicals and they make the thing. And someone was like, what is this? And I'm like, it's actually now considered a classic technique, because when Ferran Adria made this, it was maybe in the 90s.
Yeah, it was revolutionary and amazing and brilliant. And now it's like, it's like sous vide is such, which half the time isn't actually sous vide. It's just, it's just water bath cooking, of which there is a Iron Chef episode, by the way. Original Iron Chef has a vacuum bag cooking episode. But like that's become such a normalized thing, and often it's a labor saving device. But it's not considered like you can still do some really cool things with it. But also we forget that I don't know if you know this, but that technique was developed for chain restaurants and for industrial food businesses. It was actually, if I remember correctly, it was developed for Howard Johnson's.
Yes. And if I'm correct, I think Jacques Pepin.
Yep. Absolutely true. You are absolutely right.
Because I remember reading his autobiography, The Apprentice, and being like, oh, wow, that was him that did that. Like, because he was like a corporate guy all the way up until basically he started doing TV stuff.
Yeah.
And now I do, for Christ's sake, for years.
Yeah. And now I use that stuff at home or in the, in the kitchen. It's normal.
Yeah. I mean, I still do it for certain things. Like I can't remember the last time I broke it out, but it's been within the last 4 months. I used it for something, Yeah.
I mean, really good for leg of lamb.
Yeah. I definitely did that. Like, within the last year, a leg of lamb, because my wife doesn't eat lamb, but my son was really interested in it. So I was like, okay.
And for people who don't like lamb, like swimming, which is like technical term for circulating lamb, gets, there's some tips and tricks you can do to really avoid, those really lammy and gamey flavors that some cultures really, really like.
Right.
And then a lot of people who say they don't like lamb, it's that gaminess they don't like, which has a lot to do with the oxidation of the fats. And there's ways like doing it like 131 for 4 hours will like solve a lot of the problems,
It's like people that say, oh, I don't like duck, it's too greasy. It's like, well, yeah, but you fucking went to a place that like is good at doing it? Because I'll tell you what, a duck breast is amazing.
It's amazing. And I mean, if you think of I like greasy duck and I like not greasy duck. And I like Peking duck. And if the really great Peking duck places, like the skin is so thin and so rendered down. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever see the guy in China who has this giant Peking duck restaurant. They have this really interesting, sophisticated, like heating and cooling way of like prepping their ducks. Yes. And he'll take a square of skin and throw it on the table and it will shatter.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's tight, man.
That's one of my happy places is watching people make Peking duck. Like, and always it's like, you know, they got the air hose and it pops up. You're like, oh shit, they're about to get into it.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. Like I love weird, esoteric, non-time saving cooking techniques.
Yeah.
At the end, you know, it's fucking incredible. You know, like there's a lot of things on YouTube that I watch that are basically silent.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody talks because, you know, they're trying to get a bigger audience. So it's all just showing technique.
Yeah.
And it's like a bakery in Japan or a bakery. It's a lot of bakeries. I watch a lot of how to make baguettes and shit. You know, it's just like, all right, that you see them open it up at 1 a.m. and then it's just how they produce and how they're, you know, they pull out their bulk ferment from the night before, or the 2 days before, or they're, you know, and it's really fascinating. And food over time is really interesting, which is why sous vide for a lot of stuff is really good, where you do like an overnight thing.
Yeah. Or like, you know, or it's just like when you're doing a lot of things at once, the fact that that's going to give me, instead of 3 minutes of wiggle room to plate, that'll give me an hour. You know, it's like when I'm one guy cooking for a lot of people, that is a really convenient technique. But I think also when you think about stuff that's like so cool, like I think a lot of people, like they hear the word like molecular gastronomy and they, you know, I don't know, they shit all over or whatever. They think it's all, but it's like,
it's the easy thing to do.
Yeah. But it's like any new technique at a certain point was like crazy and innovative. You know, think of how like smart, like choux pastry and puff pastry is. And you see like proto puff pastry recipes are like 1453, you know, like, but that was like, if you've never seen that done before and suddenly this pastry magically expands, you know, how is that not, you know, molecular gastronomy, like in the era, you know?
Yeah. And you know, if I could get hold of liquid nitrogen to make ice cream at home, I would do it because I know it makes a superior product, right? Because you're not getting giant ice crystals in it. Like it makes sense. It's showmanship. And I get that because it's, you know, you see all the fuzz and the steam and shit, but like techniques are techniques. The dumb stuff will go by the wayside. You know, there's a reason why you don't really get, you know, tomato roses anymore, right? You know, but like, it's still probably a good idea to learn how to use your knife.
Yeah, it's, you know,
so I always find that kind of stuff interesting. I mean, and then going back to the recipe thing, like, okay, what are a couple of the things that you think people should like look out for when seeing a recipe? Like, what are some of the red flags that, like, if you're reading a recipe, you're like, oh, that's,
I mean, the number one thing I think is usually timing. Like, does the timing make sense? And I think there's also, if you see certain, I mean, this might not be entirely true. If you see certain like classical cooking myths, and I think these are ones that it really helps to know. Sometimes it's just telling you that it might be a good recipe, but it might be like really, really old school. Like if it's telling you never to wash mushrooms, right? Which is a complete myth. It's demonstrably false. It's easily testable. But if it says to do that, you know, you're like, okay, that's really old school. And if it's telling you to put a wine cork in with octopus to make it tender, that's wrong. It might still be a good recipe, but it makes you think like that's kind of incorrect. If things
olive oil in your pasta water.
I mean, and I do understand that like the notion of the amount of water you need to cook pasta in is like totally misunderstood, but that's kind of a new thing. But it's like you've worked at restaurants, and if you work in a restaurant that has pasta station, they've got that pasta water bath that's just running and running, and they're just dunking pasta in it, and you end up with this super saturated starch water that actually becomes a useful ingredient on its own. I think there are these things that, you know, that there is mythology about like risotto, and like someone is going to send me hate mail about this, but like there's a lot of ways to make risotto, and there's some really good cheats to make risotto, particularly if you're making it for really a lot of people, where like nobody is going to know. And I mean that objectively the final product is going to be the same, but the way that I might achieve that is different, and a horrible heresy to people who, you know, have those classical ideas. And it is, I completely understand that it is very pleasurable to sit at the stove slowly cooking and adding a ladle full of water and a ladle full of water. And it's fun. And if you have friends over and you're chatting, it's really wonderful. But that's not the way you have to do it. And that doesn't work well if you're cooking for 200 people.
Okay, what's your heretical technique?
So there's a couple of basic ways to do it. And the simplest thing is you basically are making multiple batches and overcooking one of them. And oh boy, people are going to come with this. But what I will often do is I'll split off, I'll make my risotto base, and I'll take off a bit of the cooked rice, and I'll put literally like 5 times too much water in it. And I'll, because I'm doing this ahead of time, I'll cook the hell out of it. I will cook it until it's mush, and I'll blend it, right?
I knew you were going to say that. I fucking knew.
It works.
No, because that's where my brain went too.
And then you
because I was like, if you make a congee and then puree it, you have that silky
exactly. And then
liquid.
you take the main body of the rice to exactly a hair under the al dente thing you want, and you marry them at service. And
that's
and you can
really
control
smart.
it. You can. Some people like creamer, some people like less creamer, some people, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. And that's not the classical way of doing it, but it works really, really well.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it for 200 people, you can't do that. Like
you can also make that, you can really control the flavor profile of, and I love how you call it a congee. That's a really good way to think about it. But you can make that incredibly flavorful and then like play around.
Which is a thing. That's actually a thing that I tell people if they're like, I have a Instant Pot and I don't know what to do with it. And I use my Instant Pot all the time when I'm doing at home and I don't want to go outside, or if I just want to do something quick that I can shred meat or whatever. It's amazing. Put it in 30, it comes up to heat, 30 minutes, boom. Trick to the Instant Pot is just put in water that's already hot. Like, because that's where all the time goes. But make congee with it, because congee takes forever. You'll get 30-minute congee and it's awesome. The meat, if you're just doing chicken and water and rice, and some salt, some soy sauce, knob of ginger, a couple things of garlic, just let it go and you're done, right? Like that's an easy weeknight thing you can have. Also, when you're done, just put an egg in it. You're good. Yeah. It's super comforting. You're good to go. Like, but like the thing with the risotto is really, really smart. But yeah, recipes are wild, and some can be really, like I made a bolognese this weekend and it took 4 or 5 hours just because it was Sunday and I had the time, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do the whole shebang. And at the end you're like, it was worth it. It's great. Like,
it's fun.
You're cooking stuff down, bringing it back up, cooking it down, bringing it back up, cooking it, and let me see. Talking about that, in terms of, you're saying you're more of a savory guy. What are you liking to cook these days? Like where's your head going? Like, let's say just at home. Like what do you like, if you have the time and you're not like completely like, fuck, I gotta cook. Yeah. Like if you're into it, what's the thing you cook for yourself these days?
Okay, full disclosure, I should admit that I don't cook at home for myself very much. I do. Yeah. I do cook for my friends a lot,
Okay, well, exactly.
I'm often recipe testing. I'm testing my own Smart, recipes. Yeah. But my go-to stuff, like honestly, if I'm cooking for myself at home, I will often do like dry rub pork ribs, because so I also I I have a really weird eating schedule. I tend to eat dinner at like 11 o'clock at night a lot of the time, but I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to finish like reading and working and thinking. And like that gives me a ton of wiggle room. So I'll often do, like smashed potatoes with a little cheese, a little blue cheese on smashed potatoes is really, really good. Yeah. And then I got everything kind of prepped out. And then like when I want to eat, I like crank the oven up and I'm done. But like most of the time these days, it's usually just testing some recipes. And sometimes when I want to test something, I'll actually call a couple of my friends and say, anyone who want me to come over and cook dinner? Oh,
so you go over there?
Yeah, this is like one of the first times in my life I've lived in a place where I have friends in the neighborhood. Like my two closest friends live within like a mile and a half of me, and it has never happened before. So,
and you're in New York City, right?
Yeah, I live in Queens, and my kitchen's in like Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And I live just over the edge into Queens, which also has the most diverse food like landscape possibly in the world, also linguistic landscape, like incredible place to live. But yeah, there's no like standard stuff that that I like to cook. It's mostly like I'm thinking about something. I have an idea. I want to test it out. And then I'll think, who's around this week? And like, do they eat red meat or are they a fish person or whatever? Or sometimes, I'll go to a restaurant and be slightly inspired by something and kind of want to steal it and figure I'm gonna,
Yeah. That's cool. You've been on Beat Bobby Flay and you've been a judge on Beat Bobby Flay.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
That episodes came out.
Yes.
That came out. Yeah. They came out before the end.
That was like their big like Christmas like holiday themed episode.
So being on both sides, what would you rather do?
Honestly, I'd rather be a judge. I mean, it was really fun to cook. And I mean, I think competitive cooking is really fun. I'm not sure how much it really translates into true cooking to some extent, particularly, I mean, and Beat Bobby Flay is a funny show in that like you're cooking, you have one round of kind of competitive cooking, which is a secret ingredient round. And then if you win that, then you're cooking a dish that you've already decided to cook and it's been vetted by their team. And they actually, it actually isn't a setup. Like he really doesn't know. And because I once started saying something like, don't say anything. I
didn't think he knew.
He does. He is legit. Like I will say that guy is really, really talented. Like has been doing this for a while. I think it's just like, it's a less challenging experience. It's interesting to be on the other side and interpret it. I was really lucky in that the episode I was a judge on, I was on because I won the first time, and the dish they were having them do, which was a mince pie, was the dish that I had won with. So they had me in. I was like,
so you beat Bobby Flay?
I did.
and what was the dish?
It was a mince pie, but it was a 19th century mince pie, so it had to have meat in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was going to say, was it the raisiny?
It is very raisiny. It is that you don't taste the meat in it. And I do two completely different mince pies. I also do a medieval mince pie, which is very lamby and a lot meatier. But mine tastes very much like a holiday mincemeat pie that doesn't have meat in it. But it
has meat in it.
But it has currants and apples and cherries and a little bit of meat that actually adds this savory undertone. Okay. I'm a huge fan of sweets that have a little bit of a savory undertone.
Me too. Yeah.
And I do that in a pie crust, and it's got brandy and port wine in it, and it's just marvelous. So I was on the back as a judge because of that, and it was actually cool because it was one of the celebrity chef episodes. It was like one of the big episodes where the contestants are like celebrities. Celebrity chefs. Yeah, and like really, so also they're cooking instead of doing one dish, they're actually doing a whole meal centered around a dish.
Yikes.
So it's
an extra long episode then too.
Yeah. And it's It was really cool though. I mean, it was a really good experience. And I learned a lot. I was with some really talented people, and I was very impressed by, like their poise and their ability to taste a dish and spit out a perfectly composed paragraph about it, with pluses and minuses. The funny thing is also when you do it twice. First, you taste all the dishes right when they're cooked, and you do that backstage, right?
Okay.
And you discuss it, and they take notes about what your opinions are, right? Mm-hmm. And then you do it again in front of the camera, and you taste them. I mean, the second time, you don't usually actually necessarily taste if they're cold by then. And they have what's called an earwig, which is a little thing in your ear. So
monitor, yeah.
I didn't need this, but if people like stumble, they could tell you,
that's cool.
This is what you said before. And they'll often say, if you say, this is good, and this is good, and this is good, they'll say, can you say something negative about it? Or like, find something like that. But I was definitely in that. I was the low man on the totem pole. Like everyone else there are these much more established figures. I was kind of the outlier, but it was a super great experience, and I would love to go back and do more of that stuff. It was really fun.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at some people keep going like, I talk to people about this and they're like, well, they only have the same 20 people show up and do these things. I'm like, yeah, because they know how to do it. Like, yeah, it's not that normal chefs, workaday chefs aren't good at cooking. There's a talent to doing it in time with, secret baskets and all that shit, and being able to hit it on time. It's a thing that you got to work at. It's just like anything else.
It's anything else is practice. You got to know, you have to know how to talk about your food and talk about somebody else's food in a balanced way that's entertaining. I mean, I definitely think I get a lot of things because I'm kind of fun, and I'm kind of I'm a little bit of an outlier. I'm like a little too cerebral for, one end of the spectrum and a little too crazy for the other end of the spectrum. And I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting perspective to be on both sides and to see how the sausage is made to, whatever. And it's really interesting. Like I watch a lot of that stuff, and, I'm always interested in it. I'm always interested in when people lose badly when it's their dish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because and a lot of time it's because they're so inflexible that they won't pivot to save the time. And then they wind up screwing something up, whether it's building flavor or actually cooking stuff down, or, it's really interesting to watch a lot of time and just be like, just the person at home, like, oh, they're going to lose. Yeah. You can see it from a mile away sometimes.
Yeah. Time management is really tricky. It's really funny. The first time I did Bobby Flay as a contestant, and like I practiced once, but I had two kind of tricks up my sleeve, which is that, so I knew I was going to do a pie if I got through the first round. And it's funny, they tried to talk me out of doing a full pie. They tried to talk this. They really suggested I do individual pies, which is what Bobby did, which is a smart strategy, except that I had worked it out that if I could get the pie in the oven in about 23 minutes, I could pull it at minute like 42. And I did two things. So I pre-cooked the contents of the pie.
Okay.
In a pot on the stove while I was, doing, while I was prepping the pie dough.
Sure.
Which means I knew what it was going to taste like. And that's like when you put a pie in the oven, you normally don't know it. Yeah. So I knew that the flavors were going to be spot on and really delicious. And then I rolled the pie crust like dangerously thin. Yeah, and I cranked the oven all the way up. And then I had all the time in the world. So you do side dishes and stuff, and I made a little salad of bitter greens and this, that, but actually, if you ever would have seen the raw footage of that, the last like 10 minutes of that are kind of me trying to look busy. Because I was done. I had all my sides done, and my pie was in the oven, and was like, I'm going to pull it at minute 42, and I'm going to cut it and put it on the plate, and I'm going to be done.
Just kind of.
And I was just kind of like pretending to, but they cut that stuff out. So
that's cool.
But you shouldn't take anything away from the actual skills of like Bobby, who's like, and the other people who do that, like the actual Iron Chefs back in the day, like they're,
Yeah, that dude's brain's got to be like a weird encyclopedia of, he's done so much. He's done so many shows, separate, different shows, and then done so many episodes within those shows.
Yeah.
That all that shit is just floating around. So when somebody's like, oh, it's very rare that somebody says, I'm going to do this. And he's like, I don't know what that is.
Well, you're not allowed to do that also. Like mine was almost on the edge because of like a mince pie that had meat in it, it's not, but like it has to be a dish that people have heard of. It can't be.
I've seen a couple where they say it's this and he's like, oh, I don't even know what that is. Can you got to give me a hint? And they're going, okay, well, it's got these 3 ingredients. He's like, okay, well, I'll just wing it. And most of the time on those he loses. Yeah. So that's fine. All right. At the end here, we're gonna wrap this up, I think. Okay, since it seems like where you're going now is really home cook. Stuff. What is a couple things, or 1 or 2 things that you would really give as advice to a home cook to make them more successful in the kitchen?
Okay, this is gonna be the real low-hanging fruit here. Like, it's like learn to season. I mean, obviously, and I actually have a whole explanation of like I have a structured way that that you should learn to season that I think actually works really well. And like everything else, it's do it in a progression. And when you're learning to season, over season things. Because you need to figure out where that is and do it with like boiled vegetables. Yeah. Keep putting on salt and keep tasting it. And you're like, okay, this is too salty. Well, now that's an incredibly useful piece of information you've just established. Really, and most people don't realize that the place they think is right isn't right and still needs some more salt. And that's just one of those things. And another one, incredibly obvious. Read the whole recipe all the way through. I always think of those movies like, when we were a kid, like the World War II movies, and the guy's defusing the bomb and it says, cut the green wire. And he does. And it says, but not until you've cut the red wire, which is ridiculous. Right. It's also like recipes, bad recipes can be like that. They can say, do this. And now you should have done that before. And I'm just like, that's just not the way to. So read it all the way through and ask yourself how much time things are going to take. Like there's a reason why like mise en place is a thing. Like put your stuff out, put it out in the order you're going to use it. Make sure the stuff's going to fit in the pans that you have. Make sure you have something to measure the amount you need, I just think that's the really, really easy stuff. And then the last thing is be brave. Don't be afraid to fail and allow yourself to like take things too far sometimes, because that's really the way you learn. So like those are my really like I have lots of little cooking tips, but those are like the big ones.
Those are great. I mean, I remember when I was writing for The Sun, luckily my second editor didn't do this to me all the time when I worked for another publication, but my editor would come back to me and go, can you stop mentioning salt? And I'm like, no, it's important. Like, and he's like, everything you do sounds like it's going to be salty. And I was like, have you cooked one of my recipes yet? And he's like, no. I was like, cook the recipe. And then he got back. He's like, oh, okay. I see why you're saying that. Like, right. Because you have to salt as you go. It stops certain things. It stops onions from caramelizing. Like, there are reasons that you add salt here and there to do it. And at the end, if you taste it and it still doesn't taste right, add a little salt.
Add salt.
That might be all it needs. For the recipe thing, I always tell people to take a recipe, even if it's in a book, write it out.
Yeah.
write it out on a piece of paper. And then as you're going, strike the, number 1, number 2.
Yep.
That way, where you're at in the recipe, because, it's easy to get lost when you're first starting to cook.
That's a really smart.
You're really in it, right? You're anxious, and there's fire, and you got times, and you're cooking for somebody you're trying to bang or whatever. And like when you're young and it's like a thing, it's easy to just lose yourself.
Yeah.
Just strike it out, write it out. It's okay. And it doesn't have to be the whole thing. Just, and that, I mean, those are great. And then the be brave thing.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because I don't think people trust themselves enough when they first start cooking.
No, well, how could you? But I just want to say, because you touched on something really funny. I swear to you, probably 15 to 20% of the younger people who are asking me like cooking advice are trying to bang somebody.
Of course.
Particularly men. Like I have a soup that I literally tell everyone, this is your third date soup.
Okay.
If they're coming over to your house at 30, you're gonna cook my Thai coconut soup. Man or woman, there's something sensual. It's like the aphrodisiac soup.
Yeah.
It's the deal closing soup.
I always tell my son, when you get older, the way that you're gonna get laid is, learn how to cook, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great thing to be able to do to impress, and it's not to say that that's like the thing that's going to happen, but like, can't hurt to have it in your pocket to be able to do it.
No, it's a sexy skill.
It really is. And, it also shows that you know how to feed yourself.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Is like, you should learn to be able to feed yourself by the time you strike out on your own.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids don't learn that. And I understand there's myriad reasons for it. The only reason I knew how to cook for myself is my parents would teach me certain things, but they would teach me how to like make an egg or make this or make that. I didn't learn how to cook when I was a kid until I was working in kitchens,
Yeah.
And then that was because that was my job at that point. Right. So I don't know. I agree with you though. Like, salt, recipes, learn recipes, and be brave. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. How can you turn that into a t-shirt for yourself? Salt it, read the recipe, be brave.
Yeah. I have one other motto that I actually say, if it's my cooking motto, which is question authority, but listen to it first.
Nice. Yeah.
It's that, because there is a lot of nonsense out there, but
of course,
listen to it first. Don't assume that it's wrong.
Yeah.
But try it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who know what they're talking about that, yeah, maybe a couple things might not be right, but they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten to where they're at for no reason.
Yeah.
Most of the time, especially in cooking.
Yeah. It's
you'll wash out quick if you don't.
True.
Well, hey man, tell everybody where they can find all your socials, like website and all that.
Yeah, the best place to find me is actually probably on Instagram. It's Jay Reifel, JayReifel. Same with my website, jayreifel.com. I have a TikTok as well under the same, but it's the same stuff. But a lot of the youngsters prefer the old TikTok. And if you got a cooking question, reach out. Maybe I'll answer it upside down. Who knows?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna show my son some of the rock climbing stuff because he loves rock climbing.
It's the best.
He was really into parkour, yep. American Ninja Warrior stuff right before COVID, and COVID killed the gym he was working out of so now he just does track.
It's so funny. The world has changed so much. All that style of rock climbing is all new. I learned a million years ago. I'm like old school. I learned before there were gyms. I learned outdoors on rocks. So
okay. Yeah, like when we're anywhere that has a rock wall, he wants to do it. Like when we're at the Renaissance Festival, they have a giant they have a really hard one that comes out in a round that's really fun to watch, like some dude dressed as a monk trying to go.
That's awesome. See, maybe that's my next thing. I'll climb dressed in armor. I'll do it in armor.
Yeah.
But also, like, for whatever reason, rock climbing gyms are different from other kinds of gyms. It's a different kind of. It's not like a broy gym.
Oh no, they're total nerds.
I go to an incredibly progressive gym, but it's because of the nature, particularly for bouldering. There's all this downtime. Yeah. So you try really hard for a second, and then you talk to people and you meet people. And like my rock gym has kind of become my book club.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's worked out really well for me.
Yeah, and I say nerd is a loving thing because every rock climbing guy that or girl that I've ever known were total nerds. Like, cause you weren't the big beefy fucking football player or the giant jock that hit the home runs. You were the spindly little person that could have that muscle tone and get around things.
Yeah, I think it's really funny that people who, and people who in our world were like, oh my God, that guy's a beast, man. Oh my God. And he's just some, like there are so many people
he's
who look like there's so many like average looking women who are absolute crushers who climb so much stronger than I ever will. And I mean, in my gym, I just think that's like an amazing thing about the sport, that it's totally decoupled from like what people look like and how good they are. You just have you never want to make that mistake,
Super cool. Well, thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Such a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to the Rude Cooking School podcast. You can find us wherever you're listening to right now. And if you are listening, give us a 5-star review, or if you want, just tell your friend about us. We don't pay for advertising, and word of mouth is how we get around. So do that, and we will really appreciate it. And we appreciate you listening to the Rude Cooking School podcast. And for that, I'm John Hauser III, and you are
Jay Reifel.
Don't yuck my yum. Garbage everything, everybody. Peace.